ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collider cast, episode 67. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
I'm Andy Lewis.
And I'm Rory Summers.
Whoa! What's this? It's a full house!
I'm back!
All here.
Rory's back! All the cool ones are back.
Is the bouncer on break or something? Have they snuck in?
What about? We're core team members. You guys have been limping along with the dross without us.
Thought I deleted them all from the Skype address book, but obviously not.
No.
It's going to take more than that to get rid of me.
You can never get rid of us, Steve. That's it. We're lifers now.
Well, we know people.
Wait, what?
Well, I'm glad he went that way. I thought he was going to compare us to some sort of disease that can't be gotten rid of easily.
That was more Andy's normal style, yeah.
I'm surprised
time,
Andy turned it down.
They're like a virus.
Has everyone been busy?
Yes.
I mean, I know me and Andy have, because we've actually played some games and talked about stuff, but what have you two been up to?
Ooh, sneaky dig there, Tudor. I like it.
Yeah, I'll have you know I've played at least 2 games since last recording.
That was a month ago.
It's more than 2. It's 2. I'm kidding. Jesus.
Oh.
Yeah. Mainly parenting for me. When I say unfortunately, I don't mean it's unfortunate that I have kids, just in case the missus is ever going to listen to this. What I mean is...
It's an important clarification to make.
What I mean is, I've been really busy, and I love being busy, and I love those little cherubs.
I believe the term is spawn.
I'm sensing a certain amount of sarcasm from here, Rory. So maybe we should better move on.
Move on quickly. We'll just edit
yes.
this whole bit out. I've been busy, Steve.
That's good to know.
Great, well done.
Has John been busy?
I've also been busy. I've actually played some games. Bum, bum, bum.
Have you played 2 games as well?
I've played more than 2 games. I've played quite a lot of games, in fact. Some of which I need to forget, and some of which I thoroughly enjoyed. So I've completed my yearly pilgrimage to Scotland, to the middle of nowhere, as a great excuse to put down all the technology, stop having a social life outside of the board game collection, and sit around, drink beer, and play some board games. And it was magnificent.
When you say a good excuse to put down the technology, you have to put down the technology because there's no signal.
Well, you say that, and that certainly used to be the case, but some bastard has installed a 4G mast, like about half a mile from the house.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And there's only about 3 people that live there, so it's going to be completely uncontested.
That's going to be amazing.
Although when the fog comes in, it does still drop out. So,
Does fog affect 4G signal then?
well, weather in general affects mobile phone signals.
It does if you're part of a Stephen King film.
It shouldn't, because radio waves are generally small enough, or sorry, large enough to go through fog, but it does get affected.
This is different. This is Scottish fog.
Wow.
It was
Properly
quite thick.
It's
Yeah.
sliceable. You need a machete to get through Scottish fog.
You say that. Last time I went and stayed at John's cottage with him, me and Amanda were outside the tent, and we had the most horrendous thunderstorm one night. You know, in Fallout 4, when you can hear the nuclear storms in the background,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like, real thunderstorms don't sound anything like that. Well, that's what this thunderstorm was like, and I'm not kidding. We basically we decided we'd go back in the cottage. It was raining and thundering and lightning that much, and the fog had come in, and we couldn't see the cottage, which was, 5 metres away?
Oh, God, yeah.
The really annoying thing about that whole evening is that I love thunderstorms, and I slept right through it. Everyone else was like, that was an amazing thunderstorm. You could see the lightning, and the thunder was like it was moving the ground almost. And I sat there like, bastards, I really would have loved to have seen that.
Well, we had a good one round here. Was it last week? Week before? Was loads of lightning. It was
Yeah, the
amazing.
thunderstorm
Oh, God,
was
yeah.
brilliant.
That was cool.
I almost videoed it because we've got this lone little young sapling of a tree in our front garden. The damn thing was almost at 45 degrees in the wind.
Yes, I was kind of hoping things were going to get hit because it pretty much passed over beautifully. Because, you get the thunderclap, the lightning, and then the thunderclap, and you could see it getting closer and hear it getting closer, and it kind of passed over. I mean, I think it must have been no more than a mile or 2 away from here, which was pretty cool.
It was really close here. I remember Kira trying to wake me up to go outside and look out the window and stuff. It's 3 a.m. It's lightning, it's thunder, it's impressive and everything, but I do really like my sleep.
Where's your childlike wonder, Rory?
My childlike wonder died when my child was born.
Is it almost like some kind of soul transfer?
Yes.
The baton has
exactly
been
what happens.
passed. The children have it now. Speaking of children, I played a lot of board games with children, and I've discovered that I never, ever want to play Kittens in a Blender ever again in my life.
That doesn't sound like a particularly child-friendly game.
It sounds like a shit game.
It's sort of like Exploding Kittens Light.
What?
How does it get lighter than that? You just play a card and that's it.
I don't even want to waste any more time talking about this game. I just felt like I had to say that, and now I can move on with my life because, my God, those kids were obsessed with it.
I don't want to waste any more time listening to about it, so...
Good.
Happy with that. Thank you. Thank you for your review, John.
Yes.
I think actually we shouldn't waste any more time because what people should probably know is that Gen Con happened last weekend and we have got a lot of news to cover this week.
Yes, we do.
Oh, do we?
Right, yes, the news. Oh, it's been a long time since I've been at the desk. The ferrets are looking, well, honestly, they look quite fat. Have you guys been overfeeding them again?
I believe in a strict regime of positive reinforcement. Every nugget of news they come back with, they get a cookie. A lot of news, a lot of cookies. That's how it works.
Right. Unlucky ferrets, the master is back and the stick is back with him. BGG has a new look. This surprised me quite a lot because I was, honestly, I was hunting around the internet rapidly last night trying to find lots of news for Gen Con for this podcast. And halfway through hunting, BGG changed, which freaked me out a little bit. I started to wonder whether I was losing it, whether I'd just entered another dimension, the Matrix had glitched. Was that Black Cat here before? But yes, it looks a little different now.
It does. I think I'm in the minority of people that actually like it.
Yeah, there seems to have been a bit of a furore around it. Some unhappy people. Well, it's changed, so I suppose.
But yeah, we don't like change.
Indeed. I don't mind it. I don't really care. It doesn't look anywhere near as shit as it used to, so I suppose that's a good thing.
It now looks like a website from 2010 rather than a website from 1995.
Exactly.
So...
They are at least catching up with the times.
Yeah.
It's progress. Can't knock them for that.
It's probably a bit more mobile friendly, I would have thought.
Well, most of it's just fonts and some colour changes. Mm-hmm. They haven't actually changed the content, or it doesn't look like they've changed much in the back end, but then again, I suppose you wouldn't see what's changed in the back end, would you?
No.
But it's the same stuff on there, just with a slightly better font.
Yeah, it's a bit more readable now.
Oh,
well.
But the big thing that a lot of people seem to get wound up about is the new logo.
Yes.
It looks like Johnny Bravo in silhouette.
See, I quite like it, so that when I'm now at work and I have Boardgamegeek open on my computer, it doesn't look so cartoonish and childlike. It just looks like this little orange logo. That is someone is just going, Rory's got a website open. Whereas before,
same one he has open
that cartoony
every day.
face all day, every day. But that big cartoony face, now that that's gone, it just looks a little bit slicker.
I think so.
And I like the colour orange, so it works for me.
What's it supposed to be?
It's the same logo, it's just now one block colour.
It's just like the outline of the geek's head.
Oh, I see, yes.
I've seen someone on Twitter had put some glasses on it, and you realise then it's the geek's face in silhouette, basically.
Right, okay.
Could do the glasses in black, but then it might end up looking a bit too much like Gordon Freeman.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, although it does open them up to a bit of litigation, I suppose.
So it is a bit of a bad thing then. Anyway, back to Gen Con. There are lots of new and interesting things happening, which you guys have done a great job researching.
Yeah, we did.
Now, I also did a great job researching, but apparently all the stuff that I found that looked interesting is stuff we've covered before that you guys have heard about for ages, and the listeners, well, they've probably already got copies of it all.
Well, we certainly do, yeah.
I hold my hands up.
What are the things on the list, John, you've actually played?
Yeah, that's fine. Not everyone might have done. These are all things that were on the hotness list from things from Gen Con. I thought they were legitimate ideas, but apparently my ideas are rubbish.
You know, you're reminding me of one of the people I used to work with when I was before I joined where we are currently. When I was a consultant, and we used to write a lot of stuff in VBA and Excel. And VBA is not great, as I'm sure you know, John, as a software engineer.
Not great is not strong enough.
But because some of the clients at the time were limited in what they could do and the things they were allowed to use, we always had to use Excel and VBA. So it was referred to as our company was on the cutting edge of obsolete technology.
Are you referring to John as obsolete technology?
I am not. No.
Okay.
Well, I'm referring to what he's just pulled out as obsolete technology because it's always been, it's been around for 6 months or more.
Like I said, you guys have let the ferrets get fat. This is what happens. They're going to get a strict diet, strict training regime. Have them back in fine fettle no time at all.
Excellent.
So let's talk about the new and freshest of exciting news articles then, shall we? One of the ones that caught my eye was the new Arkham horror game, of course. No surprise to anyone who's a regular listener. This is actually like Arkham Horror Quick, would be the best way I describe it. I can't remember actually the actual name, which is Final Hour. So it's supposed to be an Arkham horror game that takes an hour to play.
Bollocks.
You're disappointed, or you're saying that is certainly untrue, Andy?
I am suspicious of the brevity. Let's put it that way.
Well, the idea is it's not supposed to be the full Arkham horror experience. It's supposed to be a game in much the same way as the new Pandemic that came out, the rapid response one.
It's got an egg timer.
It's got something in it which makes the game run a lot faster. So it's designed to be a much shorter game right from the start.
Does it start with Cthulhu on the board? That would be very short.
Short, but still a game, Andy.
Well, it's kind of a game, a very brief game.
From what I understand, that they have opened a rift in the space and time and summoned the Ancient One, and you've got a limited number of turns to close that rift. So I think that's the whole point of that brevity of the game.
So I'm not actually far wrong.
No, you're right, actually, yeah.
I will retract my previous statement.
But just see the tentacles coming through the portal.
It does have this really interesting action selection programming element to it, from what I gathered from the press release. So that although you're all working, it's a co-op and you're all working together, you're not actually given time to plan. And I think that's where a lot of the time taken from this game is stripped away. Is that, Andy, on your turn, on your own, you have to make a decision what card you're going to play, which is going to give you your action. Steve, John and I will do the same. And then we have a very limited time to discuss whether any of the negative effects on the cards are going to be triggered. And those negative effects, they give you the ability to search for the clues, whereas the action, the top half of the card, is all about the reaction and killing the bad guys and fighting and fighting back to spawn and back into the rift.
Okay. So
that's where the speed of it comes from. Everybody makes individual choices, and then we have to make the collective best of those choices we've made.
So everyone makes individual choices, and then everyone has to deal with the consequences, is what I'm hearing.
More or less, yeah. But you have the say in what those consequences are going to be. So there's no quarterbacking, there's no kind of in-depth planning. You go here, and I go there, and I'll do this, what have you. I'm going to do this because I think this is the best thing for me to do, and you guys just have to deal with it. Your plan has to slot in around mine.
You can just hear the comments already. Andy, why? Why would you pick that one? What the hell is wrong with you? You knew what the common goal was. How is that going to help? Well, at least I'll have a cocktail.
Exactly. Yes. I have a gin and tonic. And a vodka martini. That's all I need. And a pipe.
So yeah, I want to know a little bit more about the gameplay, but it's an Arkham horror game. I'm probably going to get it, aren't I?
Yes. So probably about this, Mr.
I was going to say, probably.
It reminds me, actually, I need to play Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. I've kind of just gone through it to learn it, but I haven't really played it properly.
This is the thing that's been bugging me a little bit about this news article, actually. I've only played Arkham Horror 3rd Edition like 2 times, maybe 3. So I've not played it a lot. And although we probably want to talk about it in a bit more depth in some later episodes, me and you played Outer Rim, the latest Star Wars game, a couple of weekends back. And although I enjoyed it, I was kind of seeing a bit too much of the FFG-ness in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before, that it seems over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, FFGs seem to be just picking and choosing bits from other games they've made out. We've said this about Fallout as well, and just kind of mashed them together. They don't really seem to be coming up with anything really innovative and new. They're just kind of rehashing old stuff and sort of basically throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. Speaking of which, they also announced a Marvel LCG, which looks awesome, but also looks remarkably like the Arkham Horror Living Card game.
Which looks awesome.
I was about to say, it's going to either look like Arkham Horror or what's that other one that I won't touch with a goddamn barge pole that's come out recently?
Keyforge.
That's the one, Keyforge, yeah. It's going to be one of those two, isn't it?
I'm normally very adverse to LCGs and CCGs because I know what I'm like. I will have to buy absolutely everything, own everything, and it gets very, very expensive with these. And not being a big H.P. Lovecraft fanboy, I'm just not interested at all in the Arkham Horror stuff. Sorry, Steve. Sorry. It didn't come up in my interview, so I'm just going to bring it up now.
I don't believe that. I can't believe that Steve wouldn't have raised that. And I'm surprised he got in without it.
Don't worry. There's his annual appraisal we need to go through. We can raise it then.
That's going to be coming up soon, actually.
It could be one of his goals.
Isn't he still in his probation period?
It's going to be a very short probation period if he doesn't pick up Lovecraft soon.
Oh, don't give me that. I've read some of the book. Anyway.
Nice backpedaling. Let's move on.
The Marvel Champions LCG, I think it looks awesome. I'm particularly interested in the fact you play both versions of your alias. So you play as your normal human self and your superhero alter ego, and you have to work certain parts of the task can only be accomplished in your normal person form.
How does that work when you vision then?
Don't know. Luckily, we don't have to worry about that because Vision isn't in the starting set.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll cross that bridge when they come to it. Yeah, you've got Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, She-Hulk, I think, to begin with. And most interestingly, from Fantasy Flight Games in particular, is that everything you need is in the one base box. So you don't have to go buy another one to be able to go play a full game. Like you did have to do with that.
They've keyforged it.
Bloody last.
Yeah.
That makes Steve happy.
So I'm very tempted by this. It looks really quite interesting.
Didn't they say that about the Arkham Horror Living Card game, though? You only need the one box, and then it was quickly discovered that you need two.
No, they were quite open right from the start and
Okay.
said basically if you want to customize decks, you need at least 2 boxes.
But
cheeky.
And then, yeah, while we were making this announcement during their Gen Con in-flight presentation, they actually called up another company to come and introduce a game they're bringing on. So Atomic Mass Games are doing the Marvel Miniatures superhero game, Marvel Crisis Protocol. I'm really excited about this, and you can download the rulebook now and thumbing through it, and the miniatures look awesome. And they've got a big rollout plan, so the base set comes out with the 10 heroes or 10 characters, and the idea being that when you play this, you pick 10 characters from your selection from however many you have. So you're going to draft 10 before you set up your mission. Then each player gets 1 crisis card, and you combine those to create your overall story mission. You then draft 5 characters each, heroes or villains, to create your team from those 10, and then you duke it out.
Does sound cool.
Does sound pretty cool.
I noticed they come on sprues.
They do. Multi-part hard plastic,
I've
yes.
been listening to the Polyhedron Collider podcast, you see. So I've learnt all about sprue design, and how it's unnecessary and indeed lazy. Tut tut.
However, it's pretty standard, unfortunately, on miniature games.
Yeah.
Miniatures look quite nice as well, but I mean, that's what you'd expect these days. But I'm from what I've seen so far, they do look quite pretty.
Yeah, Yep, they do. They do look really good. And I think some of the giant ones. So when the base game is released, it's going to come with the 10 miniatures you need to, and everything you need to start playing the game. And then they'll also be dropping the Incredible Hulk and someone else, large miniature. But the rules are flexible enough so that as the Incredible Hulk, when you kind of rage out, you can actually pick up a building and bring that into play. So the scenery that you use,
nice.
that you can have to buy and add into it, is fully interactive. There's some brilliant stuff on their Instagram account, which has a car suspended in Spider-Man's web to use as a platform to throw people against. So, yeah, it looks brilliant.
So, can anyone be Thanos?
So excited. I'd imagine eventually their plan is to roll out, if not all, then most of the Marvel Universe characters, but also in alternative versions. So as costumes and whatnot have changed over the years, they'll bring out, retro Wolverine and modern Wolverine, Spider-Man 3000, and so on and so forth.
If they'd brought him out first, spoiler alert, they could have done like 50% of the characters, not to worry about the other half. They missed a trick there, I think.
Pre and post blip.
Well done, Mr. Cage. Well done.
And he's back.
So the other big announcement was CMON, or CMON, have announced the third game in Eric Lang's area control trilogy, Ankh. Now, whereas the first one was Blood Rage, which is a Viking game, the second one was Rising Sun, which was set in feudal Japan, the Ankh is going to be set in ancient Egypt.
Not in more pork.
No, unfortunately not.
Very good. That's why
good
I'm sadly
would that be?
disappointed.
Very little detail has been announced so far, but expect this one to absolutely break the internet because when Rising Sun hit Kickstarter, it crashed Kickstarter for about 5 minutes last time.
Wow, really? Jesus.
Yes, it was a major thing. Kickstarter really could not cope with the traffic. So all we know is it's going to be indirect area control, suggesting that you don't directly control your pieces on the board. And we know you're playing as Egyptian gods.
Ooh.
So there's some hint that some clever way. I'm also interested to know that the first one, so Blood Rage was supposed to be Eric Lang's kind of redesign of Risk. Rising Sun was supposed to be his redesign of Diplomacy. But I've got no idea what this is supposed to be a reworking of.
Kemet.
Bit recent, that one, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. I don't know.
Insert idle speculation here.
Yes.
Yeah, as I said, we don't know much details. It's going to be huge. I can guarantee you that. It's going to have amazing miniatures because they've already shown off the miniatures of a lot of the Egyptian gods.
Of course, it's
they do
CMON,
look pretty damn amazing. And it's CMON, yeah. And it's been that popular that it may have actually ruined one of CMON's other Kickstarters.
Yes. We have seen negative effects on a current running one.
Yes.
Yeah, so about the same time, I think it actually started a little bit before Gen Con, but Trudvang Legends, which I think will still be running just about by the time you finish when this podcast airs. It's very close to its end. That started actually losing money. It lost backers and it lost money. And then when the news of Ankh came out, it seemed to lose backers really, really quick and then snowball. And I think it actually lost about $60,000 in funding in about 48 hours. Something along those lines. Now,
wow.
It was at $1 million, so it's, percentage-wise, it's not a big blip.
Piss in the pool, really, that, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think this is some people have said this is the first time they've ever seen a CMON game lose money and lose backers to such a point where the overall numbers have dropped. It also meant that, because I was watching this kind of as it was happening, it was quite weird. The little number on, you load a Kickstarter page, it does that little thing when it runs up the numbers really quick.
Catches up from where you were last looking at it.
Yeah, it was going down, and I've never seen the numbers going down before. But I was watching it, and as I was watching it, basically, if they're following their own rules, CMON would have had to have relocked 3 stretch goals.
See, what is the protocol with that? So once you unlock a stretch goal, can it be relocked? do you still have to honour it that you've announced the unlocking?
You'd have thought you'd have to relock it, because the idea is that it's if enough people back, then you can afford to do this thing. Now, in reality, they can probably afford to do it anyway, but...
Well, with this being a CMON Kickstarter, the reality was you were going to get what was going to be unlocked anyway. And what the problem is, it's just highlighted a little bit more of CMON's and the response, which I'll get to in a minute. It's just highlighted a bit more of CMON's kind of system. Because what they do is they announce the Kickstarter, and rather than announcing all the stretch goals, which are all the additional content, they announce one at a time. And the theory from most people is what they're doing is they're adjusting the stretch goal value for this item based on where they currently are in the funding. That their intention is always to add all this extra stuff, because they've all designed it. You know, when they announce this new miniature, all the digital sculpts are already there. It's, you know, the artwork for the new rule book, the new stories book is already there. So the theory is that what they're doing is they're just trickling this out to try and keep the momentum going of the campaign, to keep people interested.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. From a marketing point of view, it makes perfect sense. But what's happened is, because things were going tits up, CMON have turned around and changed the stretch goals completely. So they've completely announced what one of the expansions was going to be. So the Kickstarter exclusive expansion that comes with the base set, they've just gone, right, this is all it now, rather than teasing it. And then the second one, they've said, rather than cheese the stretch goals by value, we're now just going to announce one every day.
Oh, wow. That is a big change.
Yeah, so they've still technically got stretch goals as well, which is like additional characters and additional monsters, but they've got this now second layer of stretch goals, which are just like every new day we're going to announce another item you're going to get.
I think I'd get bored watching that.
One could argue, though, that isn't really a stretch goal, though. The idea of a stretch goal is that it's something that you are reaching to achieve. If all I have to reach to achieve is tomorrow, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to do that.
Well, you might get hit by a bus.
There is that. But...
It's optimistic Andy's back.
Right, tomorrow, stretch goal. All I have to do is wake up. Hey, thanks, CMON.
Exactly. It just highlights that CMON's goal was to provide you with this stuff right from the start. But rather than tell you what it all was right from the start, they trickle it out piece by piece.
Those sneaky bastards.
Clever girl.
So... it is a bit weird seeing like a stretch goal which gets unlocked on August the 14th, regardless of what the funding goal is. So,
are you interested in this, Steve?
I have backed it.
Or Ankh?
Trudvang. Ankh, sorry.
Yeah.
Ankh and Trudvang. I've backed Trudvang. Considering I already have Blood Rage and I already have Rising Sun, I will probably back Ankh.
Ooh.
But this is the dilemma that's going through me. I've played Blood Rage quite a bit. Now, I bought Blood Rage in retail, so I've just got the basic box, and I think I paid about £60 for it, and the Kickstarter version with shipping was around about close to £100.
Ooh.
Yeah, but you get that extra, you get that CMON bling, you get all that extra gumph. I don't think I've missed the extra gumph, and I've not played Rising Sun enough to even start using the extra gumph.
True.
Okay.
So there's a part of me that's kind of like going, well, you know, if you're looking at even just getting the base pledge and shipping, you're now looking about 100 to 120 quid for a CMON game. All in, you're looking at like 200 to 300 quid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's other games that are very similar to that, he says, looking nervously at Kickstarter.
We'll see, I think is my answer. But so what have you just backed there, Mr. Cage?
Well, it was an accident. I made the mistake of chatting to Andy online for a few minutes saying, I'm really tempted. Really tempted by Etherfields. I just keep getting tempted back to looking at backing it. And Andy pretty much said without any hesitation, just back it then.
If you're asking the question, you already know the answer.
Yeah.
The stupid thing, what you asked me, was do I go for the standard 120 or shall I go for the full 180? What the hell do you think I was going to tell you?
You might have had a sensible moment. You didn't.
I did have a sensible moment because I know that Awakened Realms offer very good value for money, and often that little extra push of cash gets you a shitload more stuff.
Half as much again, Andy. Half as much again.
Yes, but you get like 4 times more stuff.
Anyway, I caved and I went for the extra stuff. So
See, Andy was right again.
just sounds too tantalizing, that game. I can't. I've got a slightly peculiar imagination, and it sounds like it's up my street.
I have to admit, I am quite curious about it myself. I haven't backed it yet. And I probably won't, but there's part of me that's like,
Yes.
maybe I should, because I didn't go for Tainted Grail like you did. So I'm kind of thinking, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Do you know how long it's got left?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, I can't imagine it's been going. It's been going on since pretty much a bit after Expo, which was, yeah.
You best pull your thumb out your arse because it's got 19 hours to go.
Ooh, nothing like a ticking clock to make me make a decision.
Oh, it's all right. Adam's backed it, so I've got 2 people I can play this with.
Oh, by the end of that 19 hours, it might be 3. Back to the Future. What's this?
Yeah, Ravensburger have announced that they're going to make a Back to the Future game.
Stop now. Walk away.
It could be good.
You say that, but last year they released what did they release last year? Jurassic Park last year. This year they released Jaws game, and next year it's Back to the Future, which will actually be the 35th anniversary of when the first film was released.
Now, I've not heard anything good about the Jurassic Park game.
And I've heard Jaws was shit.
I have heard.
No, I had the opposite.
I've heard a lot of people are raving about the Jaws game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They reckon it's light and it's quick, but everyone says it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. That's what I'm hearing. So I'm keen to give that one a go, but I love Back to the Future.
That's why I don't want it ruined.
You never know. They might, if they've managed to do Jaws well, so that fans of Jaws really love that game, maybe they'll do some justice to Back to the Future as well.
We will have to see.
Now, the designers that are attached to this aren't the most well-known designers, I suppose you'd say. I forget their names now, and I'd looked it up previously, and when I did, they didn't have the huge back catalogue of games for me to go through. You know, when you do that thing to get a feel for whereabouts they sit in what type of games you like and what mechanics they use, all we do know is that it's a co-op, it's a dice game, and it's Back to the Future theme.
Well, that doesn't necessarily follow.
It's enough for me.
Because, you know, there's designers out there that have a checkered past, shall we say.
But at least you'd have something to go on then.
Well, potentially, because, I mean, let's take Matt Leacock, for example. He's got a checkered past, because he's done Pandemic, which has done ridiculously well, and, of course, all the Forbidden Desert and Island, all that, which is basically just Pandemic Light. And it turns out he's about to release a new game called Era, Medieval Age, which is, apparently, we've heard of roll and write, which seems to be all the rage at the moment. This is supposed to be a roll and build. So you've got, do you remember, did anyone do electronics at school or uni?
Yep.
And when you're building sort of prototype circuits, you have this sort of breadboard stuff that's got lots of little holes in. You can put components into it, and they're all sort of linked underneath, so you don't have to do any of the wiring. It genuinely looks like that. So you've got this kind of breadboard effect.
Oh, God, it does.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you basically plug these little buildings into this board based on the rolls of the dice. Which, I mean, I'm not a big fan of roll and write games, I have to admit, but it does look quite interesting. And again, so it's Matt Leacock. He's done some good stuff, but he's also done some shit stuff. So we'll have to see.
It looks like Lego.
Exactly.
It's reverse Lego.
It is, yes. You're putting things in holes rather than putting holes on
things.
Rings, yeah.
It's got weird little pegs as well, so it looks a bit like Mastermind.
That's what I thought it was to start with. And I started looking closer. It's like, oh, it's not. It's buildings on Veriboard. What? So it does look a little interesting, I will admit. It's it looks very simplistic. And there's a lot of dice, there's a lot of Veriboard, there's a lot of sort of little plastic buildings, and it looks like you can build walls and castles and things like that. So presumably because it's called Medieval, there will be castles and basements and inns and taverns and goodness knows what else. So that's supposed to be released this year if it's not out already.
God damn it, it's a geometric type game that's below the weight rating of 3.0 on BGG. I'm going to have to buy this, aren't I?
I think you are. I did think of you because I have to admit, the first time I looked at it and thought, it's a cross between Tiny Towns and Lego.
That's exactly what I thought.
Two of my favourite things.
Surprised John hasn't already bought it.
Yes. So that looks quite
I haven't
interesting.
seen it before.
No. Well, there you go. I've done you a favour.
And talking of Tiny Towns,
Oh.
Yes.
Tiny Towns expansion, which I told you guys about in our messaging chat yesterday, and then spent 45 minutes trying to prove it to myself. I thought I dreamt it up. It's not on BoardGameGeek. It's not on the AEG website. I had to trawl through my Twitter feed to find it. But yeah, Tiny Towns Fortune is coming, and that's all we know about it. We've seen the cover art, and we've seen the name. Yeah.
I
It's on
was
its way.
disappointed that when you messaged Josh Wood, they didn't have anything more. And I then posted a very sweet picture of the poor, hungry news ferrets that are desperate for just a little bit of news. And he didn't even respond.
That heartless
You're
bastard.
probably scared
Probably.
him.
Probably thinks you're a weirdo,
Yeah.
John.
And
What I'll
he'd
do
be
is
right.
I'll post an actual picture of the actual PHC news ferret and scare him into sending us the news.
We'll see if that
Or
works.
he blocks you. Whichever.
Well, you know.
He's got any sense.
Yeah. And it looks like there's more expansions coming out.
Yes.
Ooh.
More
Disney
expansions.
Villainous. Oh, this is the one that I'd probably hate.
Oh yeah, do not play Villainous.
I
Andy.
won't.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
won't.
intend to. It sounds terrible.
You won't enjoy it.
No,
But for the Amandas in the world, I dare
Yes.
say
my wife will enjoy it, which means I will be purchasing this expansion.
indeed.
See, I really like the look of this expansion, even though I've never played the game or owned it. But Scar, one of my favourite Disney characters of all time.
Ah, the lion.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I just really want the little kind of semi-opaque miniature, the statuette or something like that.
Ooh.
That's all I really want it for. I just want that. Scar
The little
and
miniatures
the
are
genie,
pretty
that's
cool.
it.
So,
Those two.
The
so there are
genie's
three
awesome, yes.
new. There's three new characters in this, isn't there? There's Scar and two others that I don't recognise because I've not seen those films.
There's the bad
Wait,
guy from the
wait,
Great
what?
Mouse Hunt.
You've never seen The Lion King?
Seen The Lion King. That's the one I recognise, you idiot.
Oh. What are the other two characters?
The bad guy from The Emperor's New Groove.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember her name. It's the one that voiced by
Yzma.
Eartha Kitt.
Yzma? How do you pronounce it?
Yzma. Yzma.
Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective.
Yeah.
I am with John on this one.
So, to be fair, we played this once at City of Games, was it?
No, it was
Aircon,
it was
wasn't it?
Aircon.
You're right, it was
You only played it once. I mean, I had to play that twice.
I think, or maybe we did play it twice. Yeah, we played it once when Amanda got it, and a second time when we had
Richard from We're Not Wizards.
Yes, and I hate to say it, I think he got a clearer picture of the PHC crew, and it wasn't a good one, of how we approached playing board games.
Badly.
Well, cruelly, I would say.
Oh, yes, yes.
Cruelly, yeah.
Well, Rory summed that up when we played Venice. He found out as well. You lot aren't nice. No, we're not.
Yep. Lewis actually tagged me in a post on Facebook the other day about the Rory card, or the Doge card, as it's actually called. And I was like, why have you tagged me in this? I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. Oh, it's the card that will help you not lose like a colossal loser, Rory.
Disappointed
Thanks, Lewis.
it doesn't have a picture of you walking a ferret. I thought that was a great suggestion.
They haven't finalised the artwork. There's still time.
Excellent.
Good.
And another expansion for a game what I have. I don't think you lot have played Inish, have you?
No.
No.
No. God damn it. You need to sort that out. It's very, very good. For those of you who have, there's an expansion for Inish called Seasons of Inish, which introduces basically another couple of mechanics. So you have a seasons mechanic. So during the game, essentially, it's quite a fairly straightforward card drafting area control game if you haven't played it. And the idea is to basically take over territories and control little settlements. And ones with the most at the end of the game wins. And so this adds a few more territories and a little additional mechanic where the seasons play a part in what you do and how it affects the game. So that sounds quite interesting. I don't play Inis as much as I should, but I will probably get this expansion at some point.
Because you're a completionist.
Yes, I am. I do
junkie.
have issues, yes. There is one other bit of news, which is actually nothing to do with Gen Con. But today, the 7th of August, at approximately 4 p.m, a Mr. James Stegmaier has announced a new Stonemaier game, which is called Tapestry. So this is hot off the press. It's already over sort of Facebook and all the groups, but...
You're holding your shit together surprisingly well, considering that announcement, Andy.
Well. That's because I'm a professional, John.
No, you're not.
I am, just not at this.
Now explain yourself.
It is a Civilization-style game. Jamie himself has admitted his biggest influence on this game is actually Sid Meier's Civilization. So that should give you an idea of the sort of game it is. It has a few miniatures in it. It has what he's called positive player interaction, and by that he basically means that there's a kind of a race to get certain goals. So if you've got say a goal card, the first person to get it will get the most points. So there's positive player interaction in the sense that it's not like Wingspan where you're essentially multiplayer solitaire, or like in Scythe. There's actually a lot of player interaction in this. Weight-wise, it's slightly lighter than Scythe, but a lot heavier than Wingspan, so it kind of sits in that little bracket there. You have asymmetric cultures, so the whole thing is human-ish based. You don't have different races. It's all set on a kind of Earth, but you have different cultures which are all asymmetric. So a little bit like actual Civilization, where you pick the Romans, they're good at fighting, but lousy at diplomacy, and the French are good at cooking and whatever it is, so everyone has a sort of a benefit. The idea, like Civilization, it takes place over thousands of years. There's lots of tiles that you can put down on the board, so the board will change every time you play it.
It's not real time, is it? This isn't like the driest and longest, most boringest ever Euro
It is
game,
not
right?
Twilight Imperium, no.
Only when you're playing, John.
Ooh!
I'm just doing it for Andy. He loves it when the games go on for ages.
Wow.
That look in his eye, it's not pure hatred or indeed boredom at watching me pore over every possible eventuality. It's the excitement of all the extra planning he gets to do on my turn.
Doesn't take me that long.
Son of a bitch.
But there's a bit of an engine builder in there. More importantly, Biddy and Walter, his cats, are quite big fans of the box art. That is a question I asked him directly, and he responded, because there was a launch video, and he took live questions, and he read my question out, so I feel quite starstruck now. So I am holding it together rather well. So I was live, my name was live on the internet earlier today. It is going to be available early September, so in about a month's time, for pre-order. It is expected to be probably in excess of 70 USD. And he has said it's going to be the most expensive game that they've ever produced in terms of price. I don't know exactly how much it's going to be, but the expectation is, more than $70. So about 70 to 80 quid, I would have thought, by the time it hits the UK. Unlike Wingspan, where they only made 5,000 copies, Jamie has confirmed, and every box is numbered, there are 25,000 copies in the initial print run. So it should be a bit easier to get hold of this time around. And obviously, I am very excited for this because it sounds fantastic. And I will be pre-ordering this.
Does sound intriguing.
Exactly. We'll get you on the Stonemaier bandwagon yet, Mr. Cage.
Never not actively been off of it.
That's
It's
true.
just, there's a lot of bandwagons heading in lots of different directions. And I feel like
And as per usual, he's got to make a decision, so he's just stuck in analysis paralysis.
Yeah. Jesus, your handbag's loaded today, isn't it, Tudor?
the easy targets are back, Rory.
I'm not an easy target. Keep me out of this.
Oh, wow. No, that's funny. I think, speaking of which, though, John, I genuinely think you should play Wingspan. I think you'll like it.
Yes, I think you're probably right.
And I think it's a game that Caroline will like as well.
Right, I think that's enough news, mainly because we're like 50 minutes into the podcast and we've actually got to talk about some games we played.
Damn.
And we didn't talk about the D&D movie either.
No one cares about that. They fucked the last one up.
I'm not getting excited about that movie until I see at least on some kind of photograph of someone on set.
Speaking of sets, a friend of mine recently published a movie. It turns out one member of the Beauty Board Gaming Group, Carl Timms, friend of ours, is a film director. He had a film bankrolled or not Kickstarter. It was on Indiegogo, so it was crowdfunded. It's called Off Grid, and it stars James Cosmo and Alison Steadman. So big names.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know those names, James Cosmo was in Game of Thrones. That's how big he is.
He's getting around a bit, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He played one of the Night's Watch guys. So he's a physically large man, very, very tall.
And he's also voicing Oathsworn, yeah.
Yes.
Oathsworn.
So he was in that, and this was a 23-minute short we got invited to the other day, which is very, very good. A supernatural thriller, it was dubbed as. I'm not going to reveal any more than that in case anyone goes and sees it. So it's only 25 minutes long, so it'll be sort of released on the internet, I guess. I don't know. But it was very cool. We rather enjoyed it, so we got to go to the premiere of it, which was very nice.
Look at you.
Did you wear a nice dress and walk down the red carpet?
I did not. I wore a nice dress, but there was no red carpet. So that was fun.
Cool.
And, actually, speaking of which, Board Games made an appearance in the pub quiz I was recently at. Board Games has actually been a positive influence on my knowledge. We were standard pub quiz stuff. You get a sort of form, and there's a sort of fill in a bunch of answers at your leisure. It was kind of pairs. But the second question of the quiz was, what is the scientific term for the smell or aroma after a period of rain?
Oh, very good.
Petrichor.
Yes, exactly. And myself and Alora are the only people in the pub who knew the answer to that question. So we have Big Davey T to thank for that.
Cheers, Davey T.
Nice.
Right, what do you want to start with, gents?
I think we should start with Undo because Steve wants to fight me.
Fight,
Well,
fight,
I'm
fight,
just going to be interested to see what's going to happen when we talk about this game, that's all.
My money's on Rory.
I'm just going to get some popcorn and just roll the occasional grenade in, because I have played this. I want to see you two duke it out, and then I shall pick a side.
Go on then.
Or do you want us to build up this? Undo is the main event.
You've introduced it now. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
I've never played it. So tell me, what's great about this game? How do you play it? How do you win?
Right, so you win by saving a life.
Sounds good.
You play it. Yeah, see? You see, it's dramatic already. It's a game about time travel. You play as kind of, basically, it's Quantum Leap. You're going to go back in time to the event of someone's death, and you're going to go there at that time. From that point, you have choices to make, and you can choose to travel to various different points in that person's, in their history, or a little bit further. And you go back and you get to that location, you choose one of these cards, you flip it over, you read the card, and then you have a choice to make of how you're going to interact at that moment, at that time. Now, I'm going to try to describe this game, A, better, and B, without any spoilers, because it's a type of one-play game. So once you've gone through it once, you can't do it again. It's a story. So you're going to be unraveling this narrative as you go. Once you get to a point in time, you have a choice to make as a group as to what you're going to do and what you're going to do with that interaction to make that person's life better or worse. You then get a score, and you then choose to another point in time, and those points in time can be 15 minutes before they die, 9 hours before they die, 65 years, or the one we've played, which is the Cherry Blossom Festival. You can move to a week into the future after their death, obviously. Each card has a location, a time, and I think that's it.
There's also a clue associated with them as well.
And a clue association, yes. Every major card has a minor clue card, yeah. It's like a hot word, yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, is it? You've got so many turns, I think.
Yeah,
it's nine.
Nine goes, and I think there's something like 13 cards.
9 goes, 13 cards, and you got to try and save this guy's life. by making small incremental butterfly effect changes to his past to affect his present, putting right what once went
Sounds
wrong.
quite interesting. So if you do multiple adjustments in his past, and you go back like 15 minutes and then an hour, does the hour adjustments potentially undo the good stuff that you did 15 minutes?
No. And there's a nice cop-out statement right at the end of the game that tells you this. They all take place at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what point you go to. When you go to that location, you're only going to make that one change and you're going to unravel part of the story, which is going to help inform choices in later cards that you choose. Now, I really liked it. I really liked it because the game itself encouraged a lot of conversation at the table. I played it 4-player, and every card we flipped over, we were having discussions and about the ramifications. What do we think the optimal move is going to be? We had these big kind of discussions about the story, about the character, and his family, his friends, the people that he was interacting with, the people that were in that scene. These big conversations about the ifs and the buts and trying to narrow down what you're making these choices. And we found it quite tricky to try and work out what is. As a co-op, you could play it 1 player as well. But the point of it is, John, in your turn, you're going to decide which location you're going to go to, and you're going to have the final say as to what choice you're going to make as a team. And then you're going to have this discussion. We're going to have that discussion. And that's what I love about this game. Our score was terrible. But getting to that score was a real experience.
That's where you fell down. That's because you had a discussion. You ignore everybody else and tell them what to do, and you get it right.
So what score did you get, Rory?
0.
Oh! So basically, you just went back in time and observed what happened.
No, he did the equivalent of a cat on a shelf. He just knocked some things off.
We made some very important changes. Some of them were bad changes.
Oh, right. So you made some positive ones and some negative ones. Oh, right. Okay.
I think we got 1 plus 2. And then in the 13 cards, some of them are major life events, and I think there's only 4 major which have a +2 modifier or a -2 modifier, and they can also score 1, -1, or 0, depending on what choice you make. And so I made 1 good major decision, and then several bad decisions. Yeah,
2 steps forward in 1 step, and then 1 step backwards twice.
Yeah. Yeah, we were hovering around 0 for pretty much the entire game. We just made bad choice after bad choice.
Was that not a little bit disappointing to get to the end, having really made no difference to this person's life?
No, it wasn't. Like the process, you're telling a story, and your every card you turn over, you're getting another scene. And it's evolving this story, and the story that you're telling, is changing, and it's changing as you tell it, and depending on what order you tell it in. So have you ever seen the film Memento?
Yes, it's great.
Yes.
Depending on what order you do it, it feels a lot like that. You're getting a disjointed narrative as you try and hopscotch between what you think you need to know and something that happened 65 years ago. Was it actually important, and how much information is it going to give you? But on the other hand, if it wasn't important, why would it be there? So there's this exploration through the story and through time to try and tell this story and trying to unravel this mystery and trying to unravel the mystery of how this person died.
So 1 minute you're running down the road, wondering why you're chasing these people, and the next minute you're running back up the road, realising they're chasing you.
Yeah. So, Steve.
It'd be nice to think as exciting as chasing someone down the street had happened in this game, though.
I'm sensing this might be the crux of your problem with it, Steve.
Right, okay. I didn't hate this game. I'll start right from the start. So I didn't find the game ultimately that interesting, mainly because you didn't appear to be changing anything. So, to put it into context, and this actually might be why I didn't enjoy it as much, we won. We won the game. We saved this guy's life. I can't remember now whether we scored 6 or 8. I have a funny feeling it was 6, which is the bare minimum to save his life, and I think 8 is you've made his life more positive.
What's the maximum you can score?
9.
I think 10, did it say?
9.
Or
I think it's
9?
9.
9.
It might be 10, but if you scored 9, that was basically you've made his life better and saved his life and done a whole, basically sucked him off and all this other wonderful stuff. Whereas I think 5 or 6, you save him and that's about it. A little bit more than that, and you learn. It basically says you've worked it all out, which is hogwash because we worked it all out. We just didn't get all the story elements to score the points.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's the other issue with it as well. We'd worked out roughly what was going on, but didn't know when these things were going on.
Yes.
So didn't know when to go to. It ends up we mostly got it right. As I said, scoring 6 out of 9 was a pretty damn good result. But I don't feel as if I worked for it, and I don't feel as if it was rewarding as we were playing. Because I had no idea. You didn't know until the end of the game what the score range was. So when we revealed the card that said +2, it was like, okay, I think that's good because it's positive.
Yeah.
But is that slightly good, really good, amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the same problem. We're like, okay, we're doing okay. We've got a score of whatever it's 4, I think it was. Partway through the game, we're thinking that's pretty good, and there's like 5 cards left or whatever it was. We're thinking, is that a lot? Can we thoroughly bomb it now, or can we just go screw it? We'll finish the game and we'll see how we do. So I know what you mean. There was no calibration to give you an idea.
So do you think that's a problem with the way the game teaches the rules to you? Because going into it, if you knew that information, that this was your maximum score and this was a bad score, would that change your perception of how well you were doing? The way the game works, it works in much the same way as a legacy game, in that you've got a deck of cards and this is the bottom and these are in a particular order. Don't move them. And it explains the rules as you play. If there was a point on those cards that says some of these cards are a major event, they're going to score you up to +2 and -2, and you're going to want to get a high score as possible, maximum possible is 9 or 13 or whatever it is. Would that give you then more, a grounding experience?
No, I don't think it wouldn't matter because you still have to do all 9 cards. You can't stop partway through. You're not allowed to. You have to use all your 9 time cards. So even if you know halfway through, we're doing really well here, you've still got to survive the next 4 without making a crap decision. So you've still got to make a sensible set of decisions.
Yeah, doing that method you just suggested, Rory, that's a very mechanical way of doing it. I think the problem with the game is the game had no feedback. Because the game even said, okay, you're going back in time and you're making these changes, but it says, as you said, the butterfly effect. It was supposed to be these changes were so minor that you're slightly altering the course of history, which means it didn't affect the game. And the first thing John said, really excited. Oh, does that mean it affects your later decisions in the game? But it doesn't, because this deck of cards remains constant throughout. It doesn't branch. It's the same story.
I can understand why they might do that though, because otherwise, if it branches each time, imagine how big the deck's got to be, or you've got to be very careful in the way that you organise it.
I agree with that, but it just meant that the actual experience of playing the game was just a little bit kind of, as I said, it was lacking in feedback. It was lacking in feeling that what you were doing was actually the right path.
Okay. So, although you were moving around this disjointed narrative way, the outcome was still quite a linear experience for you.
Yes.
Okay. No, I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't mind it. I think I'm sitting in the same camp as Steve is. That it was. I found it actually. Laura and I, we sussed it out, or most of it out, about halfway through. So it kind of meant the last half of the game was almost a formality because we were just trying to find which decisions fit our hypothesis, rather than. I mean, maybe that's the intention. I don't know, but. It did feel like once you'd kind of got a grip on the chain of events, there was only like one thing we weren't 100% on, and it didn't really matter at the end of it. We'd sussed out the major events and the major bits that we think, okay, well, this happened and this happened because of that, and he'd done that because of this, and if we can change that and that and that, and then the chances are he's probably going to be fine. And we were right.
So my question then is, did you enjoy that process of figuring out, that detective element of working out the story?
Yes, we did.
We've worked it out before the big reveal.
See, yes and no, I would say for me. I enjoyed it, but there was one particular. I don't want to spoil it because this is a game you play once, and you play it once only. Then you know the story, and you can't play it again because we've all played the same copy of this game. Because there is no point, it doesn't keep on. There was one decision we got wrong, which is why we didn't get a fantastic score. We got 6. And I still, for the life of me, even at the end, when it tells you what the actual, tells you the full story, I couldn't work out how we were supposed to have known that.
Okay.
Now, obviously, if you'd gone through the cards, if you'd picked a certain card, it probably would have pointed you towards this piece of information. But I just felt it a little bit frustrating. Now, it's that whole thing of like, did I do well because the clues actually did work, or did I do well because I was lucky? And were there clues all the way along as to exactly what was going on?
And yet you were just missing. Okay.
It's the issue I have with if you played the one that struck out to me the most is the Marcy case from Time Stories. My view of that was I couldn't work out what to do, and it was only when when we finished I realised that was clues hidden away in the cards that weren't obvious. Like there's, again, I don't want to spoil it, but there's something to do with a picture and some people, and the picture are in the background element of one of the cards.
Okay.
So if you're really clever, you'll have got that clue. But if you don't get that clue, you're there just scratching your head going, well, how the hell am I supposed to have worked that out?
Yeah.
And Undo had the same kind of thing. I think actually worse in that because there didn't seem to be an obvious breadcrumb trail of clues to follow, there seemed to be a little bit of like, well, let's try this one and see what this tells us.
Yes. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think we got quite lucky in the chain of events that we followed.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of things that definitely helped with understanding the actual cause of death. And from that, we can kind of go backwards and work out the sorts of things we needed to change. Whereas if we'd have done things in a very different order, it probably would have meant things were much, much more difficult. So,
and that comes down to look,
yes.
You reckon? That choice, that initial choice you make, you're either going to get a good lead or a bad lead, like a detective story in a way.
Yeah, to start. I mean, to be honest, I think ultimately, because you're seeing 9 cards out of 13, you're probably going to see most of the important stuff. But as you said, there's only, I think in this deck, there was something like 4 major events. And if you, out of 9 out of 13 cards, statistically, you could miss all 4. It's unlikely, but you could. And if you missed all 4 of those major decisions, you're boned. There's no way you're going to be able to get the full 9 or even get close to even saving the guy's life if you need to get at least 5. So I think, in a way, you kind of need to be led through it more on a choke chain to kind of steer you in the right direction to get you to the points where you can make these big decisions. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe make the deck bigger, but give you a bit more guidance. That said, I mean, we only used 1 clue as well. And that was near the start of the game. The rest of it, we kind of worked it all out for ourselves. So, I don't know.
You did better than us then. I think we used our full complement of clues.
No, we used 1. We didn't need them.
Well, there was no penalty for not using them.
It's true. I did consider that, actually. But
Except you only get 4.
Yeah.
You're only allowed to... So each card has a clue. So essentially, from a narrative point of view, from you're allowed to investigate something in that scene with a little bit more detail. But you're only allowed to take 4 of them, and each one of them has buzzwords. So one of them might be backpack or plant pot, and it allows you to look at the back pot or the plant pot with a bit more detail to give you more information. But you only have 4 of them. But I suppose it all depends on how well you've done in the story. We found it as a really precious resource, and we kept 1 until the very end, just in case we ever felt we really needed to kind of change our look, which didn't make a blind bit of difference.
I wonder if you could do something to kind of make it feel slightly more guided and make the stakes feel slightly higher. You had something so that as you're going, so you have to go back in time further and further to find out whatever the key event that led to this thing. And every time you make an adjustment, the points values go up, positive and negative. So the further back in time you go, the more of an effect you have later on in his life. And so you start off by making small changes that like maybe add or subtract 1 or 2 points here or there. You get some idea about roughly where you need to end up. But it will get to the point where you're starting to get to the big money as you get further back to make the bigger decisions, and you should be better informed then. or not, as the
But at
case
that
may
point-
be.
but at that point, you're removing the choice of where you're going in time. You're waiting those player decisions to go back in time, because that's where the big points are, or vice versa.
I'm saying you'd go back anyway, but as you go back, you'd still have options. It's just that the choices that you make further back have a bigger sway on what happens in the future, if that makes sense. Rather than doing the branching.
But with this, I mean, you basically need to redesign the game if you're going to do that. I'm not saying well, you would though, just the way it is. I mean,
I've never played it. I don't know how dissimilar this is. So
I'm not saying it's a bad suggestion. I think it's a good suggestion because the more things you learn, the more effect you're going to have on the game. It makes sense. But the way the game is currently made is that the 13 cards they're almost unrelated. Because they don't have an effect on each other, and everything kicks off at the same time once you go back to the present. I'm not going to mention that. Back to the Future. But when you return to your own timeline, everything kind of orders itself as it goes along. So, as Steve says, there isn't really any impetus or any feedback to say what effect your decision has, other than a little sort of card. You basically make a choice of 3 cards, A, B, or C, and the back of one of those is the points you get. So that's the only feedback you get. But because there's no effect on the rest of the game other than your final score, you're not really sure where to go next. Now, that's the point. You're supposed to discuss it, which is, I suppose, the interesting bit. But once you've worked out what's going on, it was almost academic.
I'd be interested to see. I think, Andy, you've got the copy now, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you want to give it to John, and if you want to give it, I suppose, from what we've said, are you interested? Do you want to play this game?
So we played Detective not that long ago.
All right. It would not be anywhere as in-depth or painful as playing Detective with Ben.
True. And I had mixed feelings after playing Detective. Not just because
Undo's
of that,
about 40 minutes. It's not much.
Tops, yeah.
Yeah, it's nowhere near as detailed. It's quite literally pick a card, make a decision. It's much more straightforward. As I said, me and Adam played it in about 45 minutes. And that's open in the box and play, because there's no rules to read beforehand. You read the rules when you open the box.
No prep. And it's what, 10, 15 quid?
10 quid.
I think
There you go.
10 quid, and there are 3, I think, at the moment.
Yeah.
I didn't mind. And for 10 quid, it's okay.
I think particularly the way we've done it. So I think if you're going to play it and you're going to play it with your other half or your family and your mates, actually, I'm going to pass it on to another buddy. They're going to play it, and you almost have games being passed around. I think £10 well spent. I mean, I really enjoyed it, so it's a great experience.
I'd like to try it, if for no other reason than to see how my opinion fits in with the PHC collective.
Not particularly collective at the moment.
One thing it did remind me of, actually, is Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective, which is, it's basically a very light version of that. So if you can imagine, basically, you're going around to locations in London in Sherlock Holmes, and you can basically open a book and there's a clue for that particular location, depending on the mystery you're looking at. And the same is true. There's no direct link between each of those locations other than the thread of the story that you're trying to piece together. But Undo is far less punishing and a lot less condescending than Sherlock Holmes. Because in the end of Sherlock Holmes, it basically gives you the answer and says, Holmes did it in like 4 clues because he went here, 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 and here, and this is how he did it. And you're thinking, there's no way you could think of that.
That was Undo by Pegasus Spiele.
Yep.
In fact, that was Undo the Blossom Festival.
Cherry Blossom Festival.
Cherry Blossom Festival. And I said there are 2 other mysteries in this set, and I can imagine they're planning more.
They are indeed, yeah.
This won't be the end, we'll see of them. So we may purchase some more. I mean, I'm not overly fussed, but as you said, Rory, 10 quid, it's punt territory. It's square punt territory, 10 quid. One game me and John played, which seems to be quite high on the hotness from Gen Con, is Bunny Kingdom and its expansion, Bunny Kingdoms in the Sky.
It's not a classic 90s dance track. It's in fact an expansion to what I think is quite an entertaining little game.
This game looks like a cutesy, family-friendly game.
La 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 la
It is
la la
not.
la.
This game is bloody ruthless, especially at 2-player, but I'll get into that. So what you have in the base game, you have a grid of squares, which represents a land, the Kingdom of Bunnies, 10 by 10 grid, and the various squares on the grid are either blank, which are empty fields, or they have carrot fields, or lakes for fishing, or forests for wood, or mountains, which don't have anything, or castles. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to place a bunny into this grid, which means you've claimed that as yours. And you're trying to join up different territories to form fiefdoms. And then you score points at the end of each round. Basically, you multiply the number of towers you have in your castles by the number of different resources you have within that fiefdom. And that's your score. At its most basic level, that's the game. And what you do to gain these, to claim these areas, you've got a massive deck of cards and you draft these deck of cards. So take 2 cards and pass them around clockwise, then anti-clockwise in later turns. And most of these cards have just got a grid reference in, so E1, therefore your bunny will go in square E1. There's some additional cards in there, so like some of them can add additional resources. So they allow you to add more different types of resources to your territories. Some allow you to build additional castles or even bigger castles. And then there's a couple of crazy ones like Sky Towers, which allow you to link different territories, or camps, which allow you to basically grab a spot and hope that no one else grabs the card for that later. There's also in there scrolls, which are cards which give you bonus points at the end of the game. So it might be, some of them are just like straight, this gives you 5 victory points if you've got it. Other ones are like where you score 2 victory points for every fish resource you have.
Or 20 if you've got 7 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, things like that. This game seems at first to be really light and fluffy because you're just placing these little bunnies down on the board. And when you play the game and you're just playing it quite friendly, that's what it's quite like. But once you get your head around the game, this game is bloody ruthless. Because what you're doing is you're looking at your cards and looking at the person next to you and going, well, if I give John this card here, well, that's going to join those 2 fiefdoms and he's going to score loads of points. But I don't want this card. But I don't want John to have it either.
Drop it. Oh, I've not been dealt a card.
Yeah. And then it gets later. I mean, the 2-player game is even more ruthless. In the 2-player game, you actually discard cards. You take them out of the game completely, which is just really, really nasty because they're just looking at cards going, I want to play this, but I need to discard this card. I can't let Amanda have it at all.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
When we played it, there were an alarming number of people that spent the entire game just going, I'd like to have this card, but John can't have this card, so I'm going to use this card. No one else got mentioned. It's just me.
It's almost like you have a rep, John.
It did seem to very much a case of, right, we're all going to gang up on John here.
Probably just what he did, because I lost to you by 4 points. So if people hadn't been cruel to me...
True. So what we also played, because we played 5-player, which you can only do that with the Bunny Kings expansion, and this is quite bonkers. It basically adds a second board on, which has lots of crazy resources, and I mean crazy resources. Like the main ones on the main board, carrots, wood, fish, make perfect sense.
Yeah. Iron, lumber.
The expansion board had ice cream, dinosaur eggs,
unicorns.
Unicorns.
What had the designer been smoking at that point?
Yep.
And can I have some?
It's like that level in Diablo 3 where you go into like the Cloud Cuckoo land and you're just slaughtering like unicorns and bunny rabbits are trying to kill you and you're just like, what just happened?
The artwork as well is absolutely beautiful for this. Whoever they got the artist to draw all these crazy different bunnies, because each card is beautifully drawn. So the basic ones just show you a little picture of the location, but all the kind of all the scroll cards, which are the secret objectives, all of them have got these like unique artwork on, and then all the ones in Bunny Kingdoms, the expansion, the Bunny Kingdoms in the Sky, I've got even more crazy pieces of artwork, like someone like trying to mine ice cream.
The cards could easily be enlarged and used in Dixit.
I was about to say, is it the same guy who did Dixit and Mysterio?
Well, it's Paul Maffion, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who did the art for Bunny Kingdom, and I don't think that's an artist from Mysterio, off the top of my head.
No, it's not quite as crazy as Mysterio and Dixit. So what is great about this game is you can play this game almost like multiple levels. You can play it just area control, grabbing things off the board. You can play it carefully with these scrolls, because some of these scrolls are worth a shitload of points at the end of the game.
Yep.
And so you can be very, very crafty about which ones of these scrolls you keep. It gets even more complicated with the expansion because there's this money system where you basically gain money each time you make a territory which has 2 or more bunnies in it. And then you times that by the number of like special resources you've got. And the extra amount of points this can add was ridiculous, basically, at the end of the game.
It was quite funny, actually, because if you looked, as we were doing the scoring, we were looking at like, okay, let's first of all add up all the territory bits and pieces. And you were something ridiculous, like 60 points in the lead over everyone else. And it's like, well, we may as well stop the scoring at this point. And I was thinking, I've got a couple of good stuff in there, but nothing like that. And then some of those other bits and pieces start to creep in. And it's like, actually, I've got 40 points just for having lots of wood produced. Well, okay. And then this other scroll gets me another 20, and I'm actually getting close to Steve now. I could do this. I didn't.
When you say you can play this at multiple levels, do you mean that you can literally, these are cards or module options I can add or remove to the game?
No, it's more your knowledge of the game really is going to affect what kind of game you play. So, as I said, the first game you play of this, you will probably ignore most of the scrolls, and you'll just you'll be left with them at the end of the draft. Oh, these are what I'm left with, kind of thing. Because when you're first playing the game, the idea of putting the bunnies down and making these massive fiefs is the way you're going to score points. But after a game or two, you realise like the value of these, and you start to kind of go, well, hang on, keeping this scroll, it means I don't take an action this round. Effectively, you're limiting what you can do by half by taking like just one scroll. But you start to see kind of like, well, hang on, if I start doing that now, grab the scroll early and start working towards that, I could get 20, 30, 40 points, which is, as John said, it's a lot of points.
Those are your big catch-ups, yeah. So you lose an action, but you gain a catch-up on points later on. Just looking at this on Boardgamegeek, I did not realise, because I've been very tempted by this game for a long time because I love rabbits, but it's a Richard Garfield game, and I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it kind of, you can tell.
Yeah. Because
it's actually such a simple game. It's such a simple game to explain, but and the first time you play it feels like such a simple game. Oh, yeah, I'm just placing some bunnies on the board. Yeah, there we go. And as I said, all of a sudden you just go, oh my God, this game is ruthless.
Okay, well, I'm just moved Bunny Kingdom into my buy list out of my want to play list. I'm just going to buy it.
That would make it a 4 for 4.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
What I should have done, actually, was got Elora up here and sit here now to discuss it, because she's played it a few times and I've never played it. We've got it downstairs in my room, but I've never played it yet.
We need to bring board game group at work back into state of play, as it were.
Definitely. Problem is, a lunch hour is not that long.
No.
To
You'd
explain the game.
You'd be surprised at how many games you can play on a lunch break. I used to do that. I really need to stop moving jobs. Every time I get a good board game group set up at work, I then leave.
You're just spreading the love across the country.
John and I need to set up Gloomhaven after work as well.
I've got to say, though, the going back to the cards and the scrolls and things, when you first play the game, you'll see something, I reckon, and it'll be like, you're going to gain like 20 points for doing this. And there's a real temptation as a new player to go, right, that's the thing from the very first move. I'm going to focus on getting this one goal. And I promise you, if you do that in the first round of the game, it will lose you the game. because things change. Like the best strategy I found that works for that game is about 3 or 4 turns into after you've done one complete set of the cards. So you've had one complete scoring thing. That's the time when you start sealing down what strategies are actually worth vying for. Because partly you end up with some random stuff. And sometimes that is genuinely just dross, so it might be like a couple of points here or there, although losing by a couple of points. Yeah. I think you need to play at least one round before you then seal your strategy. But as you say, like your initial reaction is to go for a big fiefdom, and then you realise the value of those sky chimneys. I worked it out, Steve. So Steve had these sky chimneys, right? They're like a link, basically, from the cloud realm to the realm on the ground. And they allow you to give a resource that's up in the cloud realm to everything that's on the ground.
Ooh.
Which on the first surface of it sounds like it's going to be really powerful. It actually only added like 1 or 2 points here or there. If I hadn't forgotten about linking a particular part of the cloud thing to my other bit of the base, which would have gave me 4 points, and Steve hadn't had that fecking chimney thing, I'd have had it. It's got to be the sign of a good game there, because it's definitely one of those ones you come away from it thinking, right, now I know what I did wrong this time, so next time I've got this other strategy.
Yeah.
And I desperately want to get it back to the table so that I can double check whether that one works.
Alora's been raving about it as well. She's played it. I think she played with Caroline and Amanda and Spiky Dave actually at City of Games to start with. And apparently Dave absolutely thrashed everybody. But she's played it a few. She's played it a few times since and really enjoyed it. So she keeps promising to teach me it, but hasn't managed to do so yet.
This is dangerous. I've actually got to go to my friendly local gaming store once we finish this podcast, and I'm pretty sure they'll have a copy of this.
Oh, there you go. 4 for 4 right now, today,
so
live.
Dangerous is one word. The correct thing to do is how I would describe it.
A positive investment in your life.
No, I've got too many games that I need to play at the moment.
Tell me about it. Oh, God. I have received, seriously, about 6 games in the last 2 weeks. It's been mental. It's Kickstarter fulfillment fortnight, it would seem.
It's a good time to be alive, Andy.
It is. It's not a good time for my Kallax, though, because it's full of overflowing. It's not good. Well, it is good, but I need to buy another one now.
There were quite a few games that we played quite a lot in Scotland. So we played some tiny towns, played quite a lot of that. We played a lot of Space Base, and I'm still not sick of it. And, hang on, let's just go back a sec. Didn't one of our order, having slated it and said that he didn't like this game, actually buy this game? Andy.
That may have happened.
Actually happen. Oh no, I've got all of these Kickstarters turning up to the shops and buy a new one as well.
It was cheap, and I have a curiosity about it. It's fascinated me. I want to play it again just to confirm that it is in fact dog shit.
I reckon over the course of the holiday we probably played 7 or 8 games, and I'm still in love with it. I love it. It's so much fun.
See, I played it again with John at the weekend, and I've got mixed feelings about this game.
See?
But it's not for the reasons why you said when we talked about it last, Andy. I think your reasons for hating it are wrong. But that doesn't make it a bad. That doesn't make it a good game. Because I found my session with it last weekend utterly miserable.
Now, I agree with you on that. And in fact, the card that came up, the one dick move card in that whole game, the one thing that allows you to affect other people's scores by dropping it by 3 points every time that you score on this card, I think that card just needs to be removed from the deck, and then I think the game's good again.
Well, the thing is, you did combo it though.
I did.
You ended up with you did end up with a triple combo. So to explain what happened, John had on his 7, which can only come up when 2 dice are rolled. He had a card on the when anyone else rolls, there was a card which, when powered up, gave you 2 victory points, and another card that, when powered up, reduced everyone else's victory points by 3.
Oof. And allowed me to buy a card. The first one did.
And allowed to buy a card. So this is on 7. Yeah. So the odds of someone rolling a 7, although it's the most highly, the most likely dice number you roll on 2 dice. John then moved these to slot 6. And what you've got to remember is, because in Space Base you can either take the sum of the 2 dice or the individual numbers of the dice, this means that his chances of getting these on someone else's turn just doubled, basically.
Yeah. It felt like the chance of someone rolling that in the 3 turns between my turn and my turn again was pretty much 1.
Yeah, it was a 4-player game, so maximum player count, and it happened every single round. So basically, every single round, John made everyone lose 3 points, whereas he gained 2 points.
Wow.
It was fun for the first couple of rounds, and then it got a bit... Yes.
That's insane.
And this is my problem with Space Base now, I've realised. every single time we've played, I've played with John has found some combo which effectively breaks the game.
To be fair, the last one I found was actually against the rules, so sorry about that.
But in your defence, although it's against the rules, the way the rules are worded and the way the mechanics work, it's an exception to how the game normally works that prevents you from doing what you did.
Yes.
So it's not like as if common sense said that what you did was right, but then the rule said basically you can only do a loop once. Because what John ended up with was a feedback loop on the last time we played, which it ended up the rules say you can only ever do one loop once. But it feels like an exception that somebody at some point did that feedback loop and went, oh, hang on, we need to get rid of that out of the rules. So let's just put this exception which stops that from happening.
Which is not board game design.
Yeah, it feels like they've had to put a plaster over in the rule book over something that's coming via the cards. And as soon as John put this photograph of how he won the game on Twitter, someone else said, "Yeah, we've removed that card from the game because it's just broken." Ooh. Which feels like another plaster that needs to be taken onto it. But my problem actually with Space Base was not that, and not the way you broke it. It's the fact that it took too long to get interesting.
Okay.
So we played it with the standard rules, where you start off with 5 credits, 1 card, and then you just build it up. So you're right, it is slow to begin with, because most of the time when other people are rolling, you're not scoring anything. Because you've only got like 1 card flipped up to the other side, so you're only getting those benefits when you roll very specific dice. There is another version, a quick start version, to kind of avoid this sort of thing, which they suggest you start playing once you've got the basic hang of it. But that in itself is actually slightly flawed, I found, because when we played that with Dave happened to get a really nice combination of cards to start with. And then basically from the get-go, every turn, he was already accelerating away, not because he'd made some clever choices and we'd been idiots and let him have those combinations of cards, but because by random chance, he got the best leg up to start with. So, I don't know. I think when you play it more, those first rounds happen quicker.
I can see how that happens, but it's still, there's nothing interesting happens until like 5 or 6 rounds into the game when you're starting to get a good spread of things that happen on other people's turn.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I enjoy the later bits enough that when we're sitting doing that bit, I'm kind of sat there anticipating what cool stuff is going to happen beyond that. Maybe I'm just more patient.
I also found the other issue is because it's a market-based game, you couldn't really plan ahead too much of what you wanted to buy either.
Yeah, that's
true. There wasn't much thinking you could do outside your turn because the marketplace could have changed. So I'm not going to say I won't play it again, and there's part of me that actually still wants to play it again. This is the bizarre thing about Space Base. I have a funny feeling we'll be discussing it again in like another 3 or 4 months' time after I've played it another couple of times.
Bought it because there's something about it. It's annoying and a bit pants, but there is something about it that intrigues me.
Yeah, it's I can't quite put my finger on it.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's all we've got time for today.
I think it is.
Fair.
Because our Gen Con news has taken up far too much space, but
your Gen Con
hopefully
news.
It's kept. Sorry, John.
But on that, if you do want even more Gen Con news, you can just visit polyhedroncollider.com and read this week's News Collider, which has that plus loads of other stuff.
There you go.
It also has most of the stuff John wants to mention. About 6 months ago.
I was going to say, yeah. We do have a strong back catalogue of articles, yes.
But before we close, guys, I'm just going to mention, I've just had a look at Trudvang Legends. Yeah.
Trudvang Lego, I thought you were going to say that.
Trudvang Lego, Trudvang Legends. And I've been watching it while we've been recording. And it's actually lost around a dozen backers just while we've been recording this, and has dropped around £400-500 as well.
Out of how many, though?
Oh, going up and down like a fiddler's elbow.
Still over $1 million.
Right.
But it's lost £400 and a dozen backers just in this time that we've been recording in this less than 2 hours. Oh, there's another one gone. Not kidding.
Was that you, Steve?
No, I'm keeping my pledge for now. It's weird, actually. Go on to Kick Track and look at the daily data, that's the one that's really telling, because it basically shows that overall it's losing backers. However, it's made some of its money back. Which I wonder how much of that is people who were already backers, like getting all the add-ons.
Yeah.
But basically, it has not had a net gain in backers since its 5th day.
Wow.
So it's a very interesting project. I must admit, I do really like the look of the game, which is why I'm keeping my pledge at the moment. I think the game does look really, really interesting. It's that value proposition, because it's CMON and there's a absolutely stupidly large shipping cost for it. It's like, do I get the Kickstarter stuff with all the Kickstarter extra content, but know that I'm paying for that for a game I've never played? Or do I wait 12 months and just get it in retail, knowing that there's a lot of stuff I'll never be able to play? But on the basis that we're always trying to do stuff for the podcast, I'm only going to play it 3 times anyway.
At least you're honest with yourself, Steve.
What I'm going to be really interested in seeing next year, what this is going to do for Gen Con and for those companies that have projects on Kickstarter just prior to Gen Con and then make announcements about new games.
Don't do it, I think is the advice.
The Kickstarter drought. In the run-up to Gen Con, there's like 3 weeks, there's a distinct drop-off of projects being launched. I'm wondering if that's going to get even bigger for next year, but we'll see.
The whole Trudvang thing, there's lots of contributing factors. I mean, some people reckon Ankh made a massive effect, like which is already mentioned. But we've already mentioned Etherfields, which is doing gangbusters at the moment.
All the cool people are back in it.
I wonder. And John Cage.
Oh!
Ooh.
That's 5 clouts from the handbag now. That's harsh.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm picking on you, John, today. I think it's because you look quite smooth.
You missed that easy target and you're still bitter about the whole space-based thing.
Be crikey. 3.5 million quid for Etherfields.
Oh, yeah. Awakened Realms know their shit. They really do.
This is it. It's like Awakened Realms are now beating CMON at their own game.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you'd like to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or your favourite podcasting platform of choice, please do. If you'd like to chat to us, we are available on Twitter. We are collectively at PolyhedronC. It's usually me behind the screen on that one, but I'm personally at Wahoffelmedenga.
I am at Sonic H with a 0.
I'm at John_Cage, and I realised when you guys read my name out recently when I wasn't here to do it, you pointed out there's no H in it, which I've never thought to mention before.
That's why no one's getting in touch.
That must be it. It's the only plausible explanation.
People are just misspelling your name, John.
Yep.
Well, in which case, Steve, do you want to spell Wahoffelmedenga for everybody? Because there's an H in that one.
WAHOFFELMADENGA.
You can also search for Steve Tudor.
Yeah, just search for Polyhedron Collider. It's easier.
Yeah.
And finally, I'm at Rory J. Summers.
Which is SOMERS, not SUMMERS.
No, we've got the proper spelling.
That's it. We'll have followers flooding in now. You watch.
We are also on Facebook and the Boardgamegeek Guild 2726.
If you fancy some D&D action, we are available, one or other of the groups, hosted by our lovely Steve, on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider. And I've actually started making a dent in the backlog of videos that I was supposed to be encoding, actually quite scarily months ago, for uploading to youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider, where you can watch back some of the action from the previous sessions.
There's also the polyhedroncollider.com, where you'll be able to read the news collider or the Kickstarter highlights, and also the reviews that we do, which come out more or less weekly. And we've even got John Cage joining the fray there with us.
He has. He's put quill to parchment and written a review.
We just need to fit it into the schedule now. The tightly drafted plan of schedule.
The one that go
reviews.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah. Whose turn is it this week?
Well, when the panic comes over for Facebook chat on Friday, right, who's done a review? Who's got a review ready to go?
That'll be it.
Anyway, tatty bye, folks. We'll speak to you again in 2 weeks. But for now, happy gaming.
Catch you later.
Bye-bye.